Pappy, would you like hear a story about a bear? Pappy asked. Ben, do you recall when we hunted bear in the backyard at our house in Fayetteville, Georgia? Yes, sir, I do. That's why I wanted to tell you Faulkner's the bear. It was the boys' fourth summer at the hunting camp, though time in those woods did not move in summers or winters, but in the slow, inexorable turning of leaf and shadow. And already he felt the wilderness pressing against him with that strange mixture of challenge and welcome, as if it were a vast, breathing creature older than the memory of any man, older even than the grim stories the old hunters swapped by firelight when the moon hung low and swollen like a tired lantern. He was Isaac then, Ike only later, after the woods had carved their lessons into him. But that first year he still carried more boyhood than man, more hope than knowing. And yet, even then he understood, with a knowledge that did not come from books, nor from the broad hands of any tutor, that the annual pilgrimage into the big woods was not for meat nor sport nor any boast a man could wrap around himself like the skin of some conquered thing. No, it was for old Ben. Old Ben, the bear who moved through the undergrowth with the slow, ponderous majesty of an ancient king, the bear who bore scars like medals and traps like discarded toys, the bear who had been seen, or said to have been seen, in the season before Ike was born, and before his father, and maybe, so Sam Fathers claimed, in the years when the Chickasaw still walked the land, without boundary or title deed, a creature so much himself that he seemed less animal than emblem, less brute than some last breathing shard of the world before it had been named or measured or divided. It was Sam who taught the boy, not in words, but in the solemn silence of dawn walks, the soft whisper of leaves underfoot, the patient placing of Ike's hand along the bark of a tree until he felt, not the tree, but the pulse beneath it, that a hunter must first learn how to belong to the woods before he could hope to track anything within them. General Compson could talk about marksmanship and strategy and the nervous habits of game, but it was Sam who believed that the wilderness had a temper and a spirit, and that a man entered it the same way he might approach an altar, humble, unarmed, honest. So that morning, Ike remembered it even years later with the vivid, painful clarity of things that change a man forever. Sam told him to leave behind his gun and compass, those proud little crutches of civilization, and walk into the woods alone. And he did, step by step, deeper into the shadowed cathedral of branches, where the daylight thinned and the world smelled of earth and memory. He walked until he felt the fear rise, cold, sharp, living, like something watching him, weighing him, measuring whether he belonged or not. And then he saw him, old Ben, not charging nor fleeing, not even threatening, simply there, enormous, scarred, implacable, as calm as a river that has outlived every map drawn to define it. Ike did not raise a hand, he had no weapon anyway, and the bear did not growl nor rear, but looked at him with a gaze so solemn and so ancient that the boy felt something shift within him, as if a door had opened and a truth, long denied, had stepped quietly into the room of his soul. The years that followed folded into one great season, hunts and campfires and old stories, the men growing slower and the woods growing smaller, the sound of axes from beyond the tree line creeping closer each year, and finally the last hunt, the one that broke the boy into a man and broke Sam's heart forever. Lion, the fierce dog that alone had the will to meet old Ben's strength, met the bear in a collision of fury and fate. And though the bear at last fell, mighty even in death, the victory tasted of something like defeat. For Lion died, and Sam died in spirit, and the wilderness itself seemed to dim, as though old Ben had been its beating heart. Later, in the quiet years, Ike would read the old family ledgers and find the darker truth, that while the wilderness had surrendered unwillingly, the land had long ago been seized and shaped by hands that dealt in ownership, exploitation, and sin. And Ike, remembering the solemn eyes of old Ben, refused the inheritance, choosing instead to honor a land he believed no man, least of all himself, had any moral right to claim. And so the boy became the man who carried the wilderness not in rifle or property line, but in memory, a memory heavy with the understanding that something sacred had walked those woods once, untamed, unbought, unbroken, and that its passing marked the passing of an age.